You are about to take part in a time-traveling road trip through pop culture. A road trip with a clear destination and many stops along the way. This is but one act of one chapter of the serialized journey.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Is it poop related?
When we last left off, we survived the few ups and mostly downs of MST3K the movie and tried in vain to understand the world's fascination with Pamela Anderson in the 1990s. This week we'll start our deep dive into the brief but jam-packed 7th season with the correlation between deep frustration and good comedy, run-ins with 2 pregnant men, the return of Mother Forrester, the tragic ballad of Rondo Hatton, and the cameo-filled return of Turkey Day. As always, I am Ryan Rodriguez, and you were stuck with the Coolness Chronicles Season 1, The History and Legacy of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Chapter 10, Staring into the Abyss, Act 2, The Moonlighting Effect Revisited. The last episode of the 6th season of Mystery Science Theater 3000 aired in March of 1995 and served as a crucial turning point in the series' history. Longtime Mad and film screener Frank Conniff had departed the show for a life writing television in Los Angeles. The men and women of Best Brains were about to embark on a feature film that would push them to their limits, and negotiation for a future on Comedy Central were still ongoing and contentious. So much so that in the Amazing Colossal Episode Guide, Season 7 was presented as a somewhat waiting for the go-ahead scenario. When the dust finally cleared, a deal was struck for a meager 6 episodes, which stands as the shortest episode order in the series' history until the Netflix revival. And it was clear that once the 6th episode aired, the show's relationship with Comedy Central was effectively over. There had been discussions with other networks, with Sci-Fi Channel being the most receptive, but nothing was in writing. This anxiety and uncertainty was coupled with the demoralizing heartbreak of the post-production and release of the movie, and the cast and crew had to simply put on their best game faces and go back to the comparatively painless process of putting their noses to the grindstone and producing the best 6 episodes possible. There were changes in the ranks as well. A lower budget prohibited the assistance of the stable of contributing writers who pitched in for Frank's final episodes of Season 6, including future Crow Bill Corbett. Mary Jo Pehl took over for Frank as film screener and co-star, reprising her role as Dr. Clayton Forrester's disapproving mother Pearl. Toolmaster Jeff Maynard decided not to return to the series, and utility infielder Patrick Brantzig initially left with him, only to return later in the season, and future prop diva Beth Bees McKeever joined the staff as an intern, working as an assistant to then prop master Helena Espinoza. Before the official start of Season 7, Best Brains was collaborating with the network on the annual Thanksgiving Marathon Turkey Day for 1995, the first time they had done so in 3 years. This involved writing and shooting the occasional bumper as well as special host segments for the season premiere Night of the Blood Beast that would be replaced with non-seasonal sketches for the official season 3 months later in February of 1996. Series star and head writer Michael J. Nelson described the return to Eden Prairie thusly, quote, "This was our first show after having shot Mystery Science Theater 3000 the motion picture, or as I now call it, the Life Sucker. It was a great relief to be back doing a show that took roughly 2 weeks as opposed to the one that consumed 2 years of our lives and involved more pinched executives than you could shake a stick at. It is a lesson for all of us. Never bring something you love and care for to a behemoth corporation and allow them to punch it and kick it and insult you and laugh at you and ignore you and rob you, even if they do provide you with fresh cold cuts and a cheap commercial plane flight." End quote. Series television was sort of a homecoming for our riffing protagonists, and Turkey Day 1995, rebranded as the MST3K Anthology, served as the grand ceremony. This anthology would be the shortest marathon yet, consisting of only 6 classic episodes, a half-hour special, and the Blood Beast premiere.
Their music defined a generation. Meet the Bottles. Mike, Crow, Tom, and Gypsy. Comedy Central's Fab Four. Spend Turkey Day watching the MST 3000 Anthology this Thanksgiving starting at 9 at Comedy Central.
Ah, greetings, you unfortunate total losers. I'm Dr. Clayton Forrester. It's Thanksgiving, and once again, I shall soon be ruling the world. As you cling to one another, weeping in desperation, you may ask, why now? Why me? Because my mother's coming in a few hours, and I'd like to be ruling the world by the time she gets here. Oh, no. Mother, she's early. Oh, what do? But I'm not ruling the world.
The arc crafted for the marathon involved TV's Frank's final act before ascending to second banana heaven, inviting choice guests for Thanksgiving dinner, which causes Forrester some serious grief as he's trying to simultaneously conquer the world and prepare for the arrival of his mother, whom he believes is merely visiting, and oh boy is he going to be surprised when he learns just how long she plans on staying. Dinner guests include Mike Nelson reprising his Jack Perkins role, using the mannerisms and makeup from the Mystery Science Theater Hour as opposed to the earlier Season 3 incarnation, writer Paul Chaplin as Pitch, the Devil, from Season 5 Santa Claus, writer Bridget Nelson as the infamous Mr. B. Natural, and Kevin Murphy as everyone's favorite one-off character, the Kitten with the Whip. Forrester seems especially on edge in A Life Without Frank, and repeatedly lashes out at his guests for interrupting his global domination, as if he would have been successful if they hadn't taken him off his game.
Great. I'm trying to rule the world before my mother gets here, and I've got Satan, I've got some androgynous man-woman, and I've got Peter Graves Jr. in my house.
Hey.
A joke, Perkins, a joke.
Pitch spends his time ironically quoting the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, the Kitten with the Whip tells increasingly disgusting stories about his neutering, and submissively urinates on various portions of the Thanksgiving feast, and an increasingly drunk Jack Perkins aggressively hits on Mr. B. Natural.
I like you.
Oh.
You're funny.
Yep, well, I'm gonna go and do that thing I was...
Mr. B. Natural? God, I can't believe you're a guy.
Yep, every bit of me, all
Well,
man.
then, so be it. I guess I'm just gonna have to trust my instincts on
right,
this one.
be natural.
Sir, allow me to kiss you.
Pearl finally arrives in time for the experiment, only to quickly and predictably ignore her son and direct her attention toward the satellite of love, an interaction that reveals a previously unknown connection between her and one of the bots.
So what is this, Star Trek Voyager or something?
Oh, no, Mother. This is my experiment. Remember where I
Art?
shot a...
Is that you?
Why, Pearl, how good to see you.
Oh, Art, you rogue, it has been so long.
Ah, you're looking radiant, Pearl. 10 years younger since the scars were sanded off.
Oh, you charmer, you. So, you work with my spawn.
Yep, pretty much run the place. These are the guys that work for me.
Pearl's referring to Crow as Art goes back to a host segment from Season 2's Jungle Goddess, in which everyone's favorite golden automaton is introduced as Art Crow during a sitcom parody. 2 seasons later, in The Giant Gila Monster, a young fan's letter mistakenly identified Crow as Art, which was a source of great amusement for the writers. As to how Pearl and Crow ever met, that is left purposely vague and confusing, and it is established as a running gag that would continue into the final season on Sci-Fi Channel, eventually leading to some very bizarre moments, the best of which we'll discuss in the next act of this chapter. It also bears worth mentioning that since the host segments were replaced for subsequent airings, if you didn't watch Turkey Day, the relationship between the two is taken for granted in later episodes, and without the proper introduction, makes increasingly less sense as it goes on. The next host segment involves a debate that has raged since the original Turkey Day.
Stuffing versus potatoes.
Dawn of Justice.
Stuffing, a complex mixture of grains, vegetables, and fiber.
The potato, nature's bouncing Betty.
Stuffing, the combination of the 4 earth elements: fire, water, sky, and crumbs.
The potato, silent enemy of the colon.
January 8th, 1994. Stuffing pulls child from burning building.
New York City, potatoes watch helplessly as man is beaten to death. Now let's turn to our scientific findings.
The skin, or jacket, of the potato is incredibly poisonous and will kill in an instant.
Centrifuge tests prove that stuffing is a better vehicle for gravy.
Potato, Norwegian rat of the vegetable kingdom, spreading typhus and gonorrhea as it jumps from ship to ship in the world's busiest port cities.
And now, Mike, a short film. Stuffing, Balm and Gilead versus Potato, 8-eyed Hydra, destroyer of worlds.
Give me liberty or give me death, but with dinner, I'll have stuffing.
This is my stuffing. Eat me. Thank you.
As a lifelong potato enthusiast, I must take umbrage with Crow and Servo's ultimate conclusion. I have recently developed a fondness for stuffing, but it will never take precedence over my affection for the greatest mashed food in the annals of edible substances. Segment 3 features more banter between Pearl and Art, I mean Crow. By the next segment, Mike and Servo exit the Mystery Science Theater, only to notice that Crow isn't on the bridge because he somehow joined the Deep 13 Thanksgiving dinner. Pearl says grace, but maintains a respect for her unholy guests.
Well, I suppose I gotta get this thing rolling. All right, before we begin, why don't we go around the table and each give a little thanks to God? No offense, Satan.
None taken.
Alrighty then.
And as her gift to Clayton, she improperly prepared the turkey, which incapacitates every guest except for Jack Perkins, who is not only suddenly stone-cold sober, but also in better spirits than he was at the start of the evening. It's then that she reveals her future plans to her son. She'll be moving into Deep 13 for the foreseeable future, and by that, I mean forever. This development is picked up 3 months later in the official kickoff for Season 7, which involves a minor visual overhaul for the series, and, with a new status quo, there comes a revised theme song.
In the not-too-distant future, way down in Deep 13, the evil Dr. Forrester was hatching a nasty scheme. He hired a temp by the name of Mike, just a regular Joe he didn't like. His experiment needed a good test case, so he cocked him on the noggin and he shot him into space. I'll send him cheesy movies, the worst I can find. He'll have to sit and watch them all, and I'll monitor his mind. Now keep in mind, Mike can't control when the movies begin or end. He'll try to keep his sanity with the help of his robot friends.
Robot roll call Cabot. Gypsy. Tom Servo. Crew.
If you're wondering how he eats and breathes and other science facts, just repeat to yourself it's just a show. I should really just relax.
Did I tell you my mother's here?
For Mystery Science Theater 3000.
The new theme sounds like it was recorded quick and cheap, which becomes somewhat of a theme for the season's overall aesthetics. The one outlier is a newly detailed satellite used in the opening credits and occasional host segment, which I believe is the same model Trace Beaulieu created for the feature film. The bridge set is more rudimentary, with a background that resembles hastily assembled molded plastic. The bots are particularly sharp, probably because of the training necessary for the feature film. Trace and Kevin had become better puppeteers and are more fluid with their delivery, frequently demonstrating their increased range and versatility. In terms of writing and performing, the riffing is breathless, almost unparalleled, and incredibly dense, and the host segments feel claustrophobic and exasperated, probably as a result of being shot as quickly as possible. It feels like the cast and crew are settling back into their preferred elevation, getting reacclimated to the feel of a series after pursuing other goals. It's also considerably stripped down to the basic elements, a reaction to the bigger is better mentality necessary for producing a movie. Everyone involved could do this without a hitch in their sleep, but they never give it less than 110%. You may remember earlier in this podcast, I believe it was Chapter 5, but don't quote me on that because I don't listen to these shows once I've recorded them, we discussed MST3K hitting its stride while there was a serious battle for control between producer Jim Mellon and creator Joel Hodgson that I termed the Moonlighting effect, in reference to the mid-80s TV series of the same name that thrived under behind-the-scenes squabbling. Well, after their experience on The Lifesucker, the Best Brains crew had been beaten by Hollywood and left in a ditch to ponder their fate. But instead of whining about how they were done wrong, they put all of their anger and heartbreak into the show. The riffs were meaner and more incisive than they have ever been, the disrespect for authority never more palpable. If anything, Season 7 proves that when you push a group of talented, smart people up against a wall and kick them in the shins, they will come back mightier and more convinced than ever that they know what they're doing. Conflict can create comedy, and in the next act of this show, when we discuss The Incredible Melting Man, you will see just how good that conflict-bred comedy can get. My affection for the season is greatly enhanced by Trace Beaulieu essentially taking center stage with Forrester's parental woes and a very vibrant and loosey-goosey Crow, in addition to directing half of the season, including the quote-unquote series finale. Trace's chemistry with Mary Jo's Pearl is also a key component, demonstrating a very different dynamic from the traditional Forrester Frank Abbott and Costello vibe, one that could easily have served as fertile fodder for multiple seasons. Pearl has been somewhat modified since her first appearance in Season 6 Bloodlust. Her hair is simpler and less like Clayton's, her mustache is subtler, taking on more of a Groucho Marx grease paint vibe, and her interactions with her son more animated and overpowering. Mary Jo is essentially doing Pearl 2.0, and would put the character through one more overhaul when she took on the role as primary antagonist just 6 episodes later. You know what? We've spent sufficient time detailing the minutiae of this season, so let's get right into the second version of the premiere, host segment-wise as the riffs haven't changed, Experiment 701, 1958's Night of the Blood Beast, preceded by the 1956 Bell telephone short, Once Upon a Honeymoon. We open in heaven during an angel summit, which looks like an average 1950s Sausage Fest conference room. The head angel is really concerned about a songwriter whose job keeps interfering with going on a honeymoon with his lovely wife. A stooge angel named Wilbur, who strongly resembles a foppish Buck Henry in a muumuu with white eyeglasses, is sent to Earth to inspire the songwriter to create a hit tune so the honeymoon can proceed. Confused yet? We then finally meet the couple in question, Mary, who seems to have no interior life, and Jeff, who chain smokes and has serious writer's block that is probably worsened by his inability to consummate his marriage.
Let's see, what rhymes with blue balls?
As Jeff tries to pound out a tune and get it over with, no pun intended, Wilbur lands on the couple's roof and pours magic inspiration dust on Mary, even though Jeff is the one trying to write a song.
Call him back. Yeah. Maybe I'll have him in a day or two, but not tonight. I haven't got one idea left to rub against tonight.
Don't say rub, or grind, or moist, or hard, or gristle.
His line's busy.
We'll try it again. If he and Sonia can't wait, I don't care what they do.
Get away from me.
Honey, is that a gay man on a Johnson's roof?
Should we get a gay man for our roof, honey?
Suddenly, Mary's casual daydreaming of a new luxurious home becomes a musical extravaganza as she sings about the wonderful appliances she could potentially own and the mundane activities she could accomplish with them.
A little pecorino.
Poppies.
I wish.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the faucet wouldn't drip all day.
Aim high, sister!
Oh, I wish Hardware Hank hadn't done my kitchen.
I wish that refrigerator door would close and stay closed.
Then Wilbur gives the inspiration dust to Jeff, again seemingly out of logical order, and he composes a new, terribly unmemorable song with Mary's help that he plays to his boss over the phone, who uses his new speakerphone to listen to. Because even though the short is primarily about angel dust and frustrated musicians, it's also about phones somehow. The boss is satisfied because he clearly has low standards, and Jeff and Mary finally get to jet off to some budget hotel and go to town on each other.
Wait a minute. What the hell was that about anyway?
What is it?
Phones!
But that's merely the inexplicable prologue to the main event.
"7 hours and his blood is still alive.
Night of the Blood Beast brings you the first creature on Earth bullets cannot kill.
It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. Things like this just don't happen.
A blood beast that makes a dead man live.
Night of the Blood Beast was executive produced by Roger Corman and produced by his brother Gene during their heyday at American International Pictures. Therefore, it is of limited artistic integrity, correspondingly short on anything that would be considered a benefit to a film, and shot within a week, utilizing spare parts from other productions. It was released as a pre-packaged double feature, meaning the distributor put together 2 unrelated movies and sold them at a lower ticket price than a standard studio single feature. It's a programmer, pure and simple, designed to be digested in a little more than an hour and forgotten even quicker. Because of all these things, it was practically made for Mystery Science Theater, but then again, I could make that argument for most Corman productions, including the ones he's producing today, and in fact I have made that argument already. Please see Chapter 6 for more. Okay, the plot of Blood Beast. The first manned space launch rocket crashes in Bronson Canyon. The government, presumably not thinking it's any big deal, only sends a couple scientists in a flatbed truck to investigate the damage. They search the capsule and find the pilot dead inside with all of his appendages and naughty bits intact and a tiny gash on his forearm. They remove him from the capsule and bring him to what looks like a 500-watt AM radio station in disrepair for further examination.
Well, we had to snap him in two like a frozen dog to get him out of the space capsule, but I think...
Without warning, the dead man comes back to life and refuses to acknowledge the scientist's claims that he was deceased, coming up with increasingly big words to describe his resurrection.
A hypometabolistic state.
No.
A type of suspended animation.
No, you were dead.
Brought on by the contraction of the mesentery blood vessels.
That's so
in
sad.
the pressure change of landing.
Oh.
The scientists decide to check the pilot's blood under a microscope.
I think we should see what I look like under the fluoroscope.
Yeah, that'll kill some time.
They notice unidentifiable cells that seem resistant to destruction from human white blood cells. The power goes out, and when one of the scientists goes back to turn it on, he's attacked by an unknown creature. He restores power and returns to witness changes in the pilot's blood. There is no trace of the mysterious cells from before, but after investigating the man's body, they find the cells have changed into shrimp-like fetuses and entered his abdominal cavity.
My God, I'm pregnant.
The creature resurfaces inside the radio station and beheads one of the scientists just as the pilot realizes that he has a telepathic link to it. It takes off again, and he spends a good deal of time shirtless and apparently without underwear, explaining that the creature isn't bad, just misunderstood.
Whoa, he is showing.
Oh, jeez, no. I can see every contour. Oh, my God, make it go away.
The pilot tracks the creature to a cave while the surviving scientists follow him on foot.
If the name says Corman, there's going to be walking. Yep.
The creature is finally seen in full for the first time, revealing what looks like an oversized melting parrot, a costume recycled from an earlier Corman production featured in Season 3 of MST3K, Teenage Caveman, and played by the same actor. The creature can also talk for the first time, having consumed the brain of the scientist it beheaded, and speaks with the dead man's voice, which sounds like a gangster from the 30s for some reason.
I brought them to you. They don't understand. I'm not sure I do. How can I help you to communicate with us?
Now I am able to speak by assimilation, a form of photosynthesis. I've been able to incorporate certain of Dr. Wyman's functional processes.
He turned out to be very boring.
Dr. Wyman's death necessary?
Through his sacrifice, I can communicate, understand your reasoning, your motivations, your way of life.
Sweetheart.
I will need your help. Together we must make them understand that I have not harmed you, that we will give them a better way of life.
Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But anyway, now I'm hiding in here because the dogs keep burying me and digging me up.
It's at this point that the movie simply throws up its hands and gives up, fully admitting that it only existed to waste your time and mock you for surrendering 62 precious minutes of your life. As the psychically connected pilot tries to defend the melting parrot and dissuade the scientists from destroying it, the melting parrot reveals that his dying race's plans are for world domination, for the good of the Earth no less, and the scientists bombard it with improvised gas bombs ignited by flares. The creature burns to death, warning that an invasion is imminent, and the whole affair limps to the finish line. Night of the Blood Beast was rather poorly directed by Bernard L. Kowalski and served as his inauspicious feature debut. Kowalski went on to direct the Gene Corman production Hot Car Girl that same year, 1958, and one of the most incompetent MST experiments ever, Season 4's Attack of the Giant Leeches, the following year. He would go on to bigger and marginally better things like 1969's Krakatoa East of Java, 1973's Sss, which I admittedly have a fondness for, and episodes of Knight Rider and Airwolf. I guess everyone has to start somewhere, but my god is this movie amateurish. Multiple shots begin with actors waiting to enter frame, which is a combination of shoddy editing and the camera being 30 feet too far away from the ideal position. The special effects are neither special nor effects, and the performances are as gray and lifeless as the rudimentary sets. The script by Martin Varno, written in 6 weeks, which sounds like 5 weeks too long, is dull and derivative, shamelessly cribbing the basic structure of Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another World, and full of characters that have no discernible personality that frequently call out for someone named Steve.
Not everybody is Steve.
Steve, cut it out.
Da-da-do, da-da-da-do, pew-pew, pew-pew, da-do.
And the Steves are there.
Steve 1, you go that way. Steve 2, come with me.
I've seen this episode around 9 or 10 times, and I'm so uninterested in anything other than the riffs that I'm still not sure if we ever meet Steve. If I'm mistaken, please don't send me corrections because I simply don't care. Sci-fi legend Jerome Bixby, whom we discussed in Chapter 9 during our deep dive into Star Trek's Mirror Mirror, and future Academy Award winner Harold Jacob Smith provided uncredited contributions to the script, which makes the dearth of quality and ingenuity that much more baffling. Although Gene Corman claimed to have come up with the movie's story, Martin Varno insists that he alone came up with the script and story. He eventually went to arbitration with the Writers Guild for proper credit, and despite sufficiently proving his case, Gene received a story credit, which had apparently been a point of contention in the past and going forward between the Cormans and non-union writers that they frequently employed. I completely understand wanting to be properly recognized for one's own work, but fighting for credit on Night of the Blood Beast is like the script supervisor of the room lobbying for a co-director credit. It makes sense in theory, but when you consider the final product, why would you want to be more clearly associated with something embarrassing? I say let the Cormans take the blame. Speaking of ill-advised ideas, this experiment led me on a most bizarre detour, which was actually thematically similar to Night of the Blood Beast.
At least this is better than Junior.
Let's discuss the 1994 ill-advised high-concept ostensible comedy, Junior.
I must be crazy to be doing this.
You may be crazy, but you're also pregnant.
I'm pregnant. I just can't keep anything down.
It's morning sickness. It'll pass. Eat crackers.
Alex is sweating like a racehorse.
What's going on?
Everything's perfectly normal, except for the fact that the mom is also the dad.
Yoo-hoo!
You look so beautiful tonight.
You look sort of glowing.
Yes, you do. You look positively lit up. What's the good news?
No good news. If this gets out, your life is over.
My nipples are very sensitive.
What?
Does my body disgust you?
No.
You're kissing? Wait a minute, Alex, you're in no condition to start a relationship.
I want you to know everything about me. I'm pregnant.
From Universal Pictures and Ivan Reitman comes Something Inconceivable.
Oh my God.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Feel how soft my skin is.
That's it.
Danny DeVito.
Guys do not have babies. We leave that to the women. That's part of the beauty of being a guy.
And Emma Thompson.
You think men don't hold enough cards? You have to take this away from us as well.
I would love, protect, and nurture that milk with everything I've got in me.
Stop it.
No, I don't stop it. I want my baby.
Junior.
Is this your first?
Yes.
This year, Labor Day is November 23rd.
But I've nothing to wear.
Hot take coming in scalding. Ivan Reitman is not a good director. Yes, he directed Meatballs, but I have a feeling that if you love that movie, it's deeply rooted in nostalgia. Yes, he directed Stripes, but, and this is not a new complaint, have you seen the second half of that movie? Yikes. Yes, he directed Ghostbusters, which I would identify as his absolute peak, but my issues with that film and the franchise it spawned could easily encompass its own separate podcast, which might eventually materialize, no pun intended. Despite Mr. Reitman's big hits in his early work with David Cronenberg, I would say that he's less an artist and more a populist. He tends to know what people want to see when they go to the theater for a big comedy, but his output is also relatively artless and frequently stupid. There is a phrase that perfectly sums up his oeuvre. High concept. Put simple, it means something you can pitch to a studio in one sentence and have everyone in the room understand how to sell it to the masses. But it's also Hollywoodese for brazenly stupid and willfully ignorant. In the case of Junior, the high concept is, what if Arnold Schwarzenegger was pregnant? Now, if that sounds like the way you would want to spend 2 hours, God be with you. Where you might see goofy charm, I see unbridled, laughless idiocy. For a comedy, there aren't actually jokes in it, and as a premise, it might be even more ludicrous than Ghostbusters. Arnold and Danny DeVito are the inventors of Expectane, a pharmacological marvel designed to reduce the chances of miscarriages in women. But because the FDA won't approve it, they can't test it on women. This leads to the light bulb moment that the movie hinges on.
I talked to my guy at Linden Pharmaceutical. You know, that Canadian firm.
Larry, goodbye.
They're willing to kick in additional funding, provided we find a volunteer for an Expectane protocol.
Can't do the protocol without FDA approval.
We can if we don't tell the FDA. But what are we gonna do, let a bunch of Washington bureaucrats stand in the way of progress?
What woman is going to take an unapproved drug while she's pregnant?
Who says we need a woman?
What are you talking about?
The experiment wouldn't have to identify the subject's sex, just the human tissue reactives. Remember Mo? The monkey? He went 5 months to term.
You mean to do the test on a man?
Why not? Are you allergic to anything?
To me?
Yes, Arnold is eventually with child, using Emma Thompson's ovum without her consent or knowledge. Usually the presence of Emma Thompson, on whom I have a devastating crush, is enough to keep my attention for the duration of a movie. But when she's forced to play possibly the dumbest smart person on the planet, I cannot take it. Arnold actually delivers a decent post-fertilization performance, but the absurd situations he finds himself in strain credulity even more than the very concept of his being pregnant.
My nipples are very sensitive.
What?
My nipples, they feel like kind of tingling.
Like tingling like sore or like itchy?
You surf?
Huh?
Surf. Because I got that a lot from paddling out. It's something about the wax in the salt water. It irritates them.
You get what?
His nipples are tingling.
I don't surf.
It could be your laundry detergent. I used to get that when I used a non-biodegradable soap.
Thank you very much for your concern. It's very nice.
Or it could be that polyester shirt.
In an article for Cracked, the red-headed stepchild of Mad Magazine, Mike Nelson declared Jr. to be number 2 on his list of the 5 worst film comedies of all time. I don't think he's totally right, because Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer have somehow directed 8 movies, so Jr. has to beat number 9 at the most, but that general assessment is on track. It's painful, unforgivably misguided, and worst of all, completely wastes Emma Thompson. Everything else aside, that is the biggest sin of all. The second version of the Night of the Blood Beast episode picks up right where the Turkey Day version left off. Dr. Forrester is still grappling with a post-Frank world and finding the permanent accompaniment of his mother truly distressing. It's clear that he still harbors a need to impress her, constantly forgetting that it's not something he could ever possibly accomplish. In the first segment, he's dressed in an ill-fitting tuxedo and trying to perform a decent trombone recital while Pearl smacks him with a ruler, only to be outdone by Crow, who is apparently an expert with the instrument. The segment features the first mention of Forrester's full name, too, and it turns out that Pearl never gave him a single chance, even from birth.
Oh, Clayton, Deborah, Susan, Forrester, you've ruined it for me again.
Segment 2 features Gypsy trying to come up with a song like the character in Once Upon a Honeymoon, while Crow and Servo come to her aid, dressed as the dandy angel, complete with little wings, diaphanous robes, and very feminine eyeglasses. It's predictably adorable. Segment 4 is easily the highlight of the whole affair, as Crow announces his pregnancy to a disbelieving satellite of love. Unlike the pilot in the movie, Crow makes it clear that his expectancy is a result of, quote, having lain with Blood Beast, unquote, which conjures horrifying visions. When his honesty is questioned, he presents a fluoroscope, which is just an X-ray with peel-and-eat shrimp taped to it, and it's quickly understood why he's going to such lengths to grift everyone.
Alrighty then, I'm pregnant. Could be complications. Here, I've got a list of demands.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a look here. Complete bed rest with comic books and videos. Servo must clean my room and I get all his food. Hey, Crow, you're not pregnant. You haven't even got a womb.
And I think you're supposed to give me a baby shower right about now. What do you think?
Crow, you're not pregnant. I mean, how would you even have a baby? Why don't you just admit you're not pregnant?
Okay, I'm not pregnant. Hey, everybody, I'm not pregnant. Oh, that means I don't get a big free ride. Oh, my ankles are swollen. My back hurts. Carry me, I'm pregnant. Carry me. Well, I want a cut of the action too, damn it.
Crow?
Yeah, well, who wouldn't want to be pregnant, huh? Who wouldn't want to be a big load on the rest of the world? Hey, everybody, I'm queen of the world because I'm pregnant. Then the whole world is supposed to bend over and smooch your ever-widening ass.
Crow.
Jeez. Well, when is it my turn? When is it Crow T. Robot's turn?
We'll be right back.
We move on to Experiment 702, 1946's The Brute Man, preceded by the 1948 Texaco short The Chicken of Tomorrow. This short was, much to my surprise, directed by Jack Arnold, who is, as I've said before, my favorite director to have his work featured on MST3K, which we'll get to in greater detail in the second part of Chapter 11 when it's time to discuss The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Apparently, before his feature directing career, Jack made his name in short subjects, even getting nominated for an Academy Award in 1951 with These Hands, about the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Although I've never seen it, I can safely say that The Chicken of Tomorrow is not of the same quality.
After all these years, whether the chicken or the egg came first is still the subject of a lot of good-natured debate.
No, it isn't.
Did you know that science and engineering help the farming of poultry and eggs? Of course you do. You've had at least one McNugget in your life, but you probably didn't know exactly how the miracle of science helps your stupid Chick-fil-A sandwich better, and the Chicken of Tomorrow is here to educate you when it's not completely creeping you out.
You can't take it for granted that every hen is earning her keep, even though laying an egg ought to be easy for any chicken.
That's what you think, big boy.
That was weird. Yeah.
And since it's brought to you by the Texas company, currently Texaco, you'll learn about the virtues of petroleum as well. But don't worry, Mike and the bots are here to make it all more palatable and whimsical, like when shots of various chickens look like mafia mugshots.
Joey the Coxcomb Tortelli. Ricky the Bantam Chavatello. Jimmy Crazy Cock Cuccini.
The main feature of the episode, The Brute Man, was the final performance for Rondo Hatton, released 6 months after his death. Rondo was a journalist who served in World War I but was discharged when he began to show symptoms of acromegaly, a growth hormone disorder from the pituitary gland that enlarges appendages and distorts facial features. Rondo, who was voted handsomest boy by his senior class in high school, developed an extended chin, bulbous nose, oversized ears, and swollen extremities. While covering the filming of the 1930 United Artists production Hell Harbor for the Tampa Tribune, the director, Henry King, became instantly interested in his incredibly unique physique and cast him in a small uncredited role as a dance hall bouncer in the film. Rondo's second theatrical appearance after another uncredited role as a slave in 1927's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Sidebar: Rondo Hatton was Caucasian. End sidebar. Rondo followed up this appearance with 1931's Safe in Hell, playing a jury member, before eventually moving to Hollywood in 1936 to take up acting as a full-time career. He went on to take more uncredited bit parts in everything from Alexander's Ragtime Band as a barfly to the 1939 Charles Laughton Hunchback of Notre Dame, in which he played a contestant in an ugly man competition. You can't make this shit up, who loses to Laughton's titular hunchback. He finally received a role with a proper name, Lynch Mob member Gabe Hart, in the Oxbow incident, though he was uncredited yet again. In 1944, he received his big break when Universal Pictures, then still very much a B-level studio, exploited Rondo's unfortunate disorder by casting him as the right-hand man of the main villain in The Pearl of Death, the 6th installment in a long-running series of movies starring Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes, several of which have been covered by Bridget Nelson and Mary Jo Pehl for Rip Tracks. That right-hand man was a brutish killer named the Hoxton Creeper. The next year, 1945, he played a variation of the same character, simplified as the Creeper, the main antagonist of House of Horrors, and in early 1946 reprised the role in The Brute Man, essentially the Creeper's origin story. He died before either movie was released in February of 1946 of a fatal heart attack resulting from his condition. Universal released House of Horrors less than 2 months after his death, but sold The Brute Man to Poverty Row Studio Producers Releasing Corporation for the same price as the negative cost. Universal's official word on the matter was that their ongoing merger with International Pictures necessitated the end of production of B-movies. The unofficial word is that they didn't want to deal with the shifty ethics of promoting their exploitation of a dead man's deformity. In the words of writer and documentarian Ted Newsom, they had no problem exploiting a live man's deformity, but once he died, they suddenly developed scruples. Sidebar: the merger formed Universal International, which produced a great deal of MST3K's experiment selection in Season 8, as well as This Island Earth. End sidebar. Rondo Hatton has since become immortalized in pop culture, appearing as the inspiration for a makeup prosthesis by Rick Baker in the 1991 adaptation of The Rocketeer, appearing in several comic books inspired by his Creeper role, and even having an award named after him in 2002 with the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards, considered the fan-selected horror Oscars, with the award based on a bust of the Creeper's face. Although the fact that Rondo received an affectionate legacy is touching, it does nothing to soften the blow that is The Brute Man, which remains one of the few movies that I simply cannot bear to watch in the entire canon of MST3K. I would argue that it's even more depressing than High School Big Shot, and in a more visceral way. Mary Jo Pehl even went as far as saying on the episode's DVD introduction that she probably wouldn't have selected the movie if given the choice today, something that we also discussed in our interview, and given the distance of time and perspective, I believe she's absolutely right. There's something twisted and distastefully uncomfortable about the Brute Man that isn't particularly aided by snarky commentary. First of all, there are numerous ugly jokes strewn throughout, which I always bristle at, and in the case of a man's actual deformity, it's even more gratuitous and insensitive.
He looks like an Easter Island statue. Whoa, does he strain krill through his mouth?
Big baleen.
Whoa.
Secondly, the plot sadly mirrors Rondo's personal life. The Creeper's personal mission throughout is to get revenge on the people responsible for his deformity while he falls in love with a girl who's only capable of appreciating him because she's been robbed of her sight. Halfway through the movie, we see the Creeper's origin story. He was once a handsome college athlete named Hal Muffet. Rondo in real life was a high school football star, and had his eyes on a woman named Virginia. His friend Clifford also fancied Virginia, and when the two were studying for a crucial chemistry exam, a jealous Clifford gave Hal the wrong answers. Later, while Hal is working on an experiment with some dangerous chemicals to make up for a test that he failed with said wrong answers, Clifford passes by with Virginia in an attempt to raise Hal's ire. He becomes enraged and violently breaks a beaker that explodes in his face, permanently disfiguring him. Although Hal is played by a different actor, it doesn't make it any more palatable. I'm sure that The Brute Man contains some great riffs, but any time I try putting it on and enjoying it, I rarely get much further than the end of The Chicken of Tomorrow, and that's a shame. The host segments are quite great, and I'll get to them shortly, and there's one scene in the movie itself that is worth tracking down on its own. There's a side character, the endlessly pissy, curmudgeon-y general store owner named Mr. Haskins, who seems to resent every single person that crosses his line of sight. And every time he appears in the movie, Mike finds him so amusing that he cannot help but crack up with presumably unscripted laughter, even keeling over at one point.
Yeah?
I didn't say anything.
Where did this come from? Somebody stuck it under the door.
I hate customers.
Don't you think it's kind of funny? Sticking a note under the door?
No.
Go to hell.
And don't go trying to make a mystery out of it.
Piss off!
Somebody probably too busy to pick up the stuff.
Could be the creeper.
Creeper. You give me the creep.
Bingo.
Well, he could be. That'd be a swell reason why he wouldn't want to see anybody or come out except at night.
You just got to deliver these groceries. And don't forget the money. $1.25.
Why'd you hire me if you hate me so?
Okay. But I still think it might be...
I know. So he's the creeper. Or you just creep along with that. I mean, hurry up with that stuff. And then get back here and do the rest of your work.
Dear God, I hate you. I hope you die.
Crusty little bastard. Probably knows somebody's whelp before.
God is dead. Good. Ah, I friggin' him.
It's the closest Mike has ever come to resembling Joel, acknowledging that the show has to keep going despite his delirium, but also not caring that he's probably breaking character. It's like an extended blooper that was left in the episode, and it's so funny and infectious that it frequently reminds me of the group reaction to the Pipper character in Season 9's The Final Sacrifice, which is my favorite 5 minutes of any experiment, tied only with the refueling scene in Starfighters, although the theatergoers are able to keep their composure during the latter. The episode itself was primarily written by Mary Jo and Paul Chaplin, as most of the rest of the crew was in LA during the writing session having futile discussions with the network about their future. The two also play crucial roles during the host segments, bookending the episode with a story involving Pearl's date with a skeevy guy in a leisure suit named Sandy, who lasciviously boasts to Dr. Forrester about the various ways he's going to bang his mom.
Hi. Mom, that guy is here. I'm Sandy. You must be Pearl's boy. Hi. What are you doing? I'm sewing the head of a piglet onto a fish. Oh, yeah. Hobbies are great. I do model trains.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Excuse me.
Your mother is one fine woman, Clay. Just between you and me, I wouldn't be expecting her home tonight. Mother!
Hi, Sandy.
Pearl, you are looking...
Well, looks like you two have had a chance to get to know each other. Okay, listen up, people. Mother is going out with her friend Sandy tonight, so Art, you're in charge.
Bro! Come on! No way! Sure, Pearl. Now you have yourself a good time and don't worry about a thing.
Oh, man.
So what Art says goes, people, and that means you too, Clayton.
Okay, you big babies. Here are the rules. Go to bed now and don't get up or I'll put your hands in a garbage disposal. No! Shut up, kid.
Look, Crow, there's no way. I'm bigger than you and I'm older than you. There's no way you're my babysitter.
Just for that, you wash my feet.
Crow.
Shut up.
Crow.
Shut up.
Crow.
Shut up.
Crow.
Go to bed.
Crow.
You shall live.
Thank you.
Shut up.
Bye-bye, sweetie.
A second arc is more heavily featured throughout, in which Servo deals with a shifty realtor named Sherry who's selling him a duplex in Philadelphia.
That's easy, Mike. Turns out you can purchase one of these beauties with no cash.
With no cash?
Uh-huh. It's called the no cash method.
Old world charm galore.
That's great, Tom, but, just a cursory glance at this shows me that you're going to be losing $2,000 a month.
Oodles of curb appeal.
Jeez, that's a paper loss, Mike. Try to relax. I write it off my income.
You don't have any income.
So I income average. Jeez, you'd be doing this too if you had any cojones.
His dedication to this new development even jeopardizes Mike's chance to contact someone on Earth.
Well, that's a cute idea too, Mike, but keep it around 30 seconds, will you? Because Sherry's probably trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah, whatever, fine.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Carla. Hey, it's me, Mike Nelson.
Mike! Hi! How are you?
I'm good. Hey, listen very carefully. This is going to sound weird, but I'm trapped up in space. It's the weirdest thing.
Hang on, Mike. My little boy Matthew wants to say hi to you.
Well, no, this is kind of important.
Matthew. Say hi to Mike.
Hi, Matt.
Say hi, Mike.
Hi.
Say hi, Mike.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Could you give the phone back now,
Mike,
please,
you didn't playgroup today.
That's great, Matt. That's terrific. Sounds like fun. Hey, could you give the phone back to your mom now? Great. Give the phone back, Matt.
Mike,
Matt,
let me
give
take
the
care
phone
of
back
this.
to your...
Let me take care of this. Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Listen, son, hang up the phone. I'm trying to get a hold of my realtor, Sherry, okay?
Bye.
No, don't hang up, Matt. Oh, great. Now look what you've done. This is our chance to get down. We got movie signs, too.
But my favorite moment of the episode has to be when Crow takes center stage yet again to attempt a song parody based around former presidential candidate Tom Dewey and the folk song Tom Dooley. But he's stretching it a little too far, and nobody else on the bridge is having any of it.
Hang down your head.
To Tom Dewey.
Whee! Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head.
Tom Dewey. Crow, what is your point here?
Well, come on. Use your imagination. Why would Thomas Dewey have to hang down his head, huh? Well, why would he be bound to die, huh? See? It's the juxtaposition of the two names, and there's endless examples of this sort of fun. Hey, here's another one. Hang on, Snoopy. Snoopy, hang on. Not Sloopy. No, it's hang. Kamba, join me. Snoopy. Snoopy, hang on.
All in all, I cannot recommend it as a whole, but the Brute Man does have something to offer. And that is where we end this act of the Coolness Chronicles. Next week is our requisite bonus episode, but 2 weeks from today we'll continue our deep dive into MST3K's 7th season with a boozy crime-solving married couple, Roger Corman taking a franchise south of the border, and a truly incredible man. What's so incredible about him? Well, he's melting. All that and much, much more as we continue to chart the history and legacy of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Thank you to everyone involved in making MST3K for everything they've contributed to my life and to culture as a whole. Double thanks for writing the episode guide that I will quote frequently in this season of the podcast. And I also want to thank Shout Factory for their excellent supplemental material that was invaluable to my research for this and every episode to follow on this subject. If you want to support the artist who made this wonderful show, many episodes are available on VOD at rifftracks.com. And thank you for listening. If you enjoy what you hear, please rate and review the show on iTunes or your chosen source, and share it with anyone you can, any way you can. This has been the largest and most fulfilling endeavor I've ever seen to completion, and it would be nice to keep making the show until it just isn't fun anymore. Have any questions, comments, or is there anything I missed in this particular chapter? Contact me on Twitter at CoolnessPodRyan or on our Facebook page, and keep on the lookout for updates. And we have an awesome Patreon page. It still feels weird saying that. Soon, the bonus episodes between Tuesdays will be exclusive there, in addition to a big interactive parallel project that I'm planning for 2020. If you want to be part of the fun, just go to patreon.com/coolnesschronicles. That's going to be quite the adventure as the new year approaches. Until next time, do what you love, don't be a dick, and as always...
I think we can all agree Jack Lemmon should never have had children.
Chronicles is written, produced, and edited by Ryan Rodriguez. Executive producers are Tracy Rodriguez and Luis Rodriguez. Original music by Bildschirm. Please visit bildschirm.bandcamp.com for more information.